Good evening, I am Pete, also known as Risk for Rewards, or over on Twitter known as @RiskForRewards. I'm here to talk to you about Newmarket today. Currently got around 20,000 followers on Twitter. Here on YouTube, about 1,600, maybe 1,700 here on YouTube, so we're building. If you do like these videos or you want to see more of my anti-post or my reviews after the weekends, if you click the subscribe button, it just means when you log into YouTube, my videos come straight up, so you don't have to go searching for them. It's pretty useful. Well, I find it useful anyway. And if you like the videos, likes are always appreciated. Any comments, I'll get back to you. And if you've got any questions or anything good that you saw on the weekend and you want to share, it's always welcome. Anyway, I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible because no one wants to listen to me rabbit on about the Newmarket, but we may have a few potential horses for going forward to the classics and any horses that I thought were maybe a little bit overrated or underrated from the weekend. So we'll go straight to Friday. I didn't put any bets up myself on Friday. Flick straight through. So the main one was obviously Native Trail in the Bet365 mile, Group 2. Well, apparently looked a picture in the paddock, looked ready to go. Appleby's comments were very positive beforehand, but well and truly put in his place by Mutasabek, even from the off. Like I think even within, as soon as they jumped and Buick was pushing them along a little bit just to keep tabs on the front runner. I think if you'd back Native Trail at the 8 to 11, I think you were slightly concerned. He did make up his ground and then sitting behind him, but I just thought Mutasabek, Jim Crowley, who had that race in the bag from a long way out, he was able to set his own fractions. They didn't go particularly quick. The times didn't come back amazing, but at the same time, he did everything he wanted to. Obviously, that was a Group 2. He won it very impressively. Lockinge is next on the list. You look to the Lockinge, you think he's a player in that about 8 to 1. But then when you look at his form from last year, he could obviously improve because he's still a lightly raced horse and he's still a young horse. But you look and he has fallen short plenty at Group 1 level, coming second and third in places. So he might become a player in the Lockinge close to the time. I think obviously he was very, very suited by those race tactics. Small field, got an easy lead. Native Trail, obviously, as much as it sounded like he was fit enough for the day, he may well come on for the run. So what else do we have? King Charles II should have been a ring. Horse has been around the block a million times. That would be more of a negative to the others in the race, in my opinion. Like not of no disrespect to that horse, and it was only a listed race, but just the fact that that horse has raced plenty and been beaten plenty to obviously get the better, and that was a bunch finish that they finished in. What else was notable on that day? Oh, the bounce back of Hurricane Lane. So it was interesting that obviously priced in about 6 to 4 joint favourite with West Wind Blows. Huge drifter all the way out to 5 to 2, and on the exchanges going towards 3 to 1. Obviously had everything on his favour, but it was just such a dreadful run last time out. Came here obviously with cheap pieces, but still, even from that, well, I say most people, plenty of people were looking at it thinking, how can you bounce back? Because it wasn't like the ground was suddenly, it was the ground before was, I think it was soft bordering on heavy, whereas it was better ground here. But even still, it looked so lifeless, but it was just complete polar opposite here. Won this very easily. The problem was I looked at trying to take him on and I thought, who do you take him on with? The money for West Wind Blows. If West Wind Blows was ready to go, and had his best form over 12 furlongs, then you would have thought, okay, the money would keep contracting. But it was one of those where he shortened up almost by default, and you were never really convinced that that's why he was almost, people were just backing him because they were against Hurricane Lane, and they thought surely Global Storm's not going to get the better of stablemate Hurricane Lane. So I think West Wind Blows, I think it's better form over the shorter trip. 1 mile 4 is not really his trip. I don't think he's even placed at 1 mile 4. In fact, you know what? I'll check that just so that I'm not just standing there and talking rubbish to you. 1 mile 4, third. 1 mile 4, 6th of 10 in the Ledger. At Goodwood. 1 mile 4, 9th of 14 in the Derby. So they were in good races, but at the same time, his better forms over shorter. Onto the Maiden Fillies race. George Bowie put up a very, very positive mention before the season started about Soprano being one of his more forward and better 2-year-olds, and she duly obliged. She wasn't the fastest away out the gates, but she always looked in control. It's a nice smooth ride by Buick. Midnight Affair was definitely the eye catcher of the race for Richard Fahey. Was it Hannigan aboard? I want to say it was Hannigan aboard. It was Danny Tudhope aboard. Found himself in plenty of trouble considering there was only 8 runners, and Newmarket's a massive field. That horse stayed on very well in behind. I mean, if Midnight Affair had got the same sort of pace setup as in started in from that stall, it would have been very interesting to see who would have got the better. But I know Soprano going forwards, I think they're looking at it as potentially an Albany horse for Royal Ascot. So I'd keep an eye on that. They would have had it straight enough for the day at Newmarket, but Newmarket's a tricky track. So I'd expect both Soprano and Midnight Affair. I'd get both of those two into your tracker. Onto the Philly Stakes, so only a stakes race, Class 3, and it was Infinite Cosmos' turn. This was one of those talking horses on the gallops, plenty of positive vibes going forward, but at the same time, the debut run last year was very. It was an eye catching run when finishing second. Came here, obviously you don't have a penalty anyway, and stepped up to 10 furlongs. And I was actually very impressed with this. Like Ryan Moore in the saddle, I had the money, the flicker ready on the Oaks just in case it was impressive. And it was impressive enough for me. I took the 10 to 1. Post race, there's no regrets for it. It was just very strange comments from Michael Stout afterwards. Like he was very playing down the Oaks. He was saying that she was workmanlike enough. She was saying that what was the comments when you asked Ryan? He said he earned his riding fee. And I rewatched that race again today, and like I'm not even sure. I think Ryan may have used the whip once, and it just looked hands and heels, and it wasn't vigorous at all. So I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe it was because straight away he got asked, "You're now favourite for the Oaks," and he didn't want to apply more pressure onto himself. Because I mean, these horses do go from like, well, it only started. I think it was about 11 or 12 to 1, so into about eights. So they do drop in the Oaks pretty fast, but at the same time, I thought it was impressive enough that not necessarily an Oaks favourite, but she likely won't be an Oaks favourite by the time you've had the Chester runs and the Lingfield runs this week, and then the ones in Ireland. The recency bias will swap everything around, and she'll probably still set the same price, but you'll have things at 4 or 5 to 1, just because they raced more recent. It's like the hype grabs it. But no, I wasn't against that whatsoever. And I didn't put the bet on until literally I was watching the markets. And then the moment she crossed the line, I thought, yep, I'll have that. So yeah, impressive enough. Oaks player, definitely. Would you want to be going in at maybe sixes? No, probably not. What she beat is up to debate. But it was just one of those where she was not given a hard time and she did everything you could ask for in a listed race. Right then, on to Saturday. Move straight across to Saturday. So I did start putting up a few selections. Saturday, we're going to skip to the Kilvington Stakes. It was a listed race, fillies and mares, and this was a handicap. I know it was the Kilvington Stakes, the listed race. So this was won by Azure Blue. This was very interesting, the amount of money that came for Heredia pre-race. Like you were talking, I think she was almost double figures, like 8 to 1 the night before, 6 to 1 before the race, and then 7 to 2 when going off. But she was playing up in the stalls and she was slow away, and she came finished like a train, and she was much more like the horse that we saw last year. They've said that she's going to be aimed at, she is likely, I don't want you to quote me on this, Hannon has said that she's likely to be aimed at the same race she won last year at Royal Ascot. She's off a similar sort of mark at the moment. I think she's only about £2 or £3, because obviously after she bolted up at Ascot, she went downhill. My concern for Heredia was the fact that this was her first run back, and obviously it was the drop back in trip. I just presumed that maybe they were doing it for fitness. But once the money came, I started to think, oh, maybe not. But obviously she won over eight furlongs last year when she won I think it was the Sandringham. It was the Sandringham handicap last year. So she raced off there off a mark of 98, and she is currently off a mark of 102. So she's only £4 higher. So she'll have a chance in that if she can repeat that sort of level of form and maybe even some improvements come. Azure Blue looks a serious improver. Like I thought this horse was a horse going places. I've put her in my tracker as Cash Machine. Obviously, this was my selection on the day, or one off. I put two up. The other one was, of course, Queen Ollie, that was pretty poor. Got backed in from about 9-10 to 1 into sixes. Just not good enough. It was more the George Bowie and 3-year-old angle getting the weight. Gail Foss-Mayer obviously finished last. Never write her off. She'll come back. She'll come back to form. But yeah, Azure Blue has only been put up a few pounds for this. I think I checked today, 98. Yeah, up £6. Won it very cosily. And Paul Morenon afterwards said he thought he got there, still got there too soon, and she won. She won easily enough. And I'd definitely be keeping her on your tracker wherever she's going next. Probe, not going to go too far into that one. Just a very, very impressive winner again, Probe was, because of the fact that, if I remember rightly, been switched from Dermot Weld to Jenny Candlish, and I hadn't shown an awful lot for Dermot Weld in recent starts, but since going to Jenny Candlish, that's a 1-2-1 in big races, so 13 runner, 11 runner, 21 runner, and has already gone up from a mark of 84 up to 91, and that was since going there. she's had career bests, so back-to-back career bests. So that could just be a horse on Probe could just be a horse on a steep upward curve. Saga in the Suffolk Stakes, so this got mixed reviews. Obviously, only going down ahead, especially with obviously it being Coronation Day, and as usual, like there's always some people who give it out of if it was a short price like a 6-4, it would have been even worse. But even at 8-1, there was people complaining with the ride that it got where Frankie didn't quite get up. I've said to you before, like I'm not here to knock Frankie. Obviously, he's won a Guineas, but like he's not. Again, I go back to the whole Ronaldo stage. He is not the jockey you once thought he was. Like as in he's not a young lad anymore. Like and if you put him and Buick on a horse and they're both at the same level, Frankie may have the more tactical, astute mind from his experience in the past, but if it comes down to a straight up shootout, I'd take Buick every day nowadays. It's just my personal view. I'm not knocking Frankie. Frankie's a brilliant jockey, but I'm just saying, it's just things to bear in mind. Vadream obviously loved the ground. Nothing to say there. You'd have been devastated if you're on Twilight Calls because as soon as the ground went heavy, you were thinking your race is over. 2,000 Guineas, the most frustrating race of the weekend for me because obviously I know obviously 9 out of 10 people they bet because they want to win money, which is obviously the no-brainer. But at the same time, as everyone sees, I put a lot of hard work and information into the content, and I give it all so that you can obviously make your own decision. And even reading it through, it was obvious there were two selections to be made on heavy ground, 8 furlongs, both Group One winners, and that was Chaldine and Auguste Rodin. Obviously, for whatever reason, in the last few days in the build-up. In fact, I'm not going to say for whatever reason. I know exactly what reason it was. I sat there and I watched the replays of the Friday, and it was good to firm ground. They were pinging off it, and I just thought, Little Big Bear is going to absolutely love this. And then next thing, I put all my content out on the Friday night. Wake up in the morning, they've had rain continuously all through the night, and the clerk of the course has apparently watered the track. And I'm just like, oh my. And I thought, okay, well, at the end of the day, it's only going to go good to soft or whatever. And then suddenly it was like Cheltenham all over again, the year with Tiger Roll. And I don't know why they're watering it. I don't know who gives them permission or why this has suddenly become okay that you should be able to water from good all the way to like heavy. Like so the slightest bit of rain. Obviously they did get a lot of rain, but it's still I think it was something like 6 mils, and it went from like good and then it was like soft, and then as the rain kept going, it was By the time you got to a race, you were looking at like soft, but it was proper soft ground, and the rain had got in. So there was only one selection in the end, and that was Chaldine. But obviously I'm not going to stand there and put content up for everyone, tell everyone I back this selection, and then know that in reality my money's probably done when I'm watching Little Big Bread drift out to nines, and then cash out and then go and back another horse and put it out 5 minutes before because it's just not fair on people. At the end of the day, I've made my bed. And the other thing is as well is if you do things like that and you start changing your mind and going with the okay, this has changed or whatever, the what if Little Big Bear drifted to nines and then won? I mean, you just feel so foolish. So you've got to stick with your instinct. It's just poor from me because obviously I've made all the analysis was there in front of me and I chose against it. And I saw so many people like booming on Twitter and in groups and like on our Discord. Everyone, like a lot of people have backed Chaldine. So congratulations. It was just one of those that got away from me. So August rode in. So let's talk about some of the losers because obviously it's not just about that. Let's start at the back. So at the back. Little Big Bear. So Little Big Bear ran very keen straight away from the off. And you already thought within the first 2 furlongs, I thought there is no way he's going to stay this out on this ground. And it's strange because he went all the way out to like 8-1, 7-8-1, then came all the way back into 5-1. So someone had thought he's got enough, but yeah, he just ran. Yeah, and everything. Not everything, but plenty went wrong for him. And then obviously he got bumped, he got struck into, he came back lame. So Little Big Bear easy, just take that run, straight in the bin. O'Brien's come out since and he said he's going to go to a race in Ireland, can't remember what it is, over the shorter trip again. I think it's, probably 6 furlongs. I don't know if he's actually got any entries yet. No, he's still got entries for like the Guineas and St James's Palace Stakes. I'd be shocked if this horse doesn't go and take on a sprint trip back in Ireland over the 6 furlongs, and then you see him in the Commonwealth Cup and see a completely different horse. But I do think he needs to, providing he's okay after being lame, I do think he needs that confidence booster to get him back in the game, say bang, I'm back, and then go back to Royal Ascot. And Royal Ascot, when it's just like Cheltenham, Royal Ascot form is king. So he'll go back there with an outstanding chance. And if he does line up and everything's tickety boo for Ireland, then you obviously, if you fancy him for the Commonwealth Cup, you'll want to get on before then. But you'll know a lot more, because obviously if he's entered at 6 furlongs over in Ireland, there's a strong chance that 6 furlongs is going to be his trip for Royal Ascot. Haven't backed him myself yet. He's currently 8-1s. He's one of those where there's no point rushing into all these things, especially on the flat, because he could come out in a week's time. A bit like O'Brien's French horse for the weekend, is Guineas, 2000 Guineas runner for France. He's come out today and said he's not running. I mean, he must have known this, but he's just come out on the Tuesday, the day it was last night, so in today's paper, and the decks were posted this morning. So anyone who'd back that have done their money. Auguste Rodin, absolutely no idea. I mean, it's first run of the season, so you can throw it in the bin anyway. But like, just never travelled. Like, again, wasn't helped at all. Him and Little Big Bear were like two in a pod, and this is why I thought in my head on the Friday when I jumped ship was I thought these two would blast off on the nice fast ground. They'd go off, they'd set their own fractions, go in the corner, and if Little Big Bear couldn't stay it would be Auguste Rodin's. If he was too quick, then, and that's how I thought they'd run their own race. But they did run their own race, but on bottomless ground, and it didn't suit either. And for whatever reason, Auguste Rodin's obviously proven on bottomless ground. But there's one thing proven on bottomless ground after 5-6 runs at the end of a season against horses like Epictetus, who I don't really rate. And there's another having your first run in the Guineas. So I just throw it in the bin. It's not the ideal Derby prep, but obviously, again, this is a bit like the Facile Vega coming into Supreme Novices. You go there to the Derby and you're not going to actually know what you're going to get, but Aidan O'Brien's got enough horses at home that he can work with, just like Willie Mullins does with Facile Vega and stuff, that he could work with and know if he's got Auguste Rodin where he wants him for the Derby. He could always fit in a trial, because obviously he's not really ran a race at all. He's beaten 22 lengths. He didn't have a hard race. It's just how he comes out of it. Silver Knot, good horse, but I think he'd be a globetrotter rather than anything special. Indestructible, obviously didn't really frank it. This is where it starts getting interesting. We've got Sakir and Noble Style. So Sakir was actually quite hard ridden, considering obviously he was trying to see out the trip and stuff. Finished well into 7th. It was a good race full of promise, obviously, because the horse was so inexperienced. It'll be interesting to see where they go with this horse next, because obviously he's got plenty of options. I think most people thought he'd go straight back to Commonwealth trip, but you are guessing really. He's not one that stood out to me as he had to. Not one that stood out to me that he'd stay, but at the same time, like you didn't gain a lot from that race because he was beaten. He's out of a Zoffany, out of a short mile lady, so could he stay? I mean, on pedigree, that's 9.5 furlongs out and 8.5 furlongs. So he's got the ability on through pedigree, but he didn't look an out and out stayer to me. So we'll see. Could go Commonwealth, could go Jersey, could go St James's Palace. Not a clue. So it's not worth guessing. For me, the one that you do want is Noble Style. Noble Style ran a big race. You just want to know. Well, I wanted to know. To be honest, I wanted to back him straight away after the race. He was like 10-1, 12-1 for the Commonwealth Cup. He didn't really change, drifted a little bit. I was kind of hoping that he was going to run worse than that, and then you'd get like 20-1, because I didn't think this trip would suit. But he actually ran much better than expected. And I thought, okay, well, you want to wait till Appleby says that, yeah, he's coming out of the race well, and then wait for Appleby to say, yeah, the plan is the Commonwealth Cup over 6 furlongs. Because again, he's got the same options. He could go to the 6 furlongs, he could go 7 furlong Jersey, or go to a mile. But he looked a natural 6 furlong horse. He's 1-for-1 at Ascot, so he's proven at the trip. He loves the good fast ground, and I just think 5-6 furlongs for him is just tailor-made. And he's such a strong traveller. The fact that he even stayed home into 6th, he was only beaten 5.5 lengths. Let's go through these. So you've got Dubai Mile, Galeron, Royal Scotsman. I'm not having this whole we'll avenge him, like as in we'll get the better of them in the future sort of thing. I just can't see it myself. You're not going to turn that form with Chaldean, in my opinion. If you were going to do it, you would have done it here, because you were closer the time before in the Dewhurst, and now you've got an even bigger gap. And going back to what I said before, is I think Frankie didn't actually give this he didn't give it the best ride. I just didn't like Frankie. Didn't look like, if you rewatch the final couple of furlongs, like I thought if something came to him and like was proper like pushing along, like I didn't think Frankie was the strongest in the finish, but he didn't have to be because he was so far clear. The horse won so easily. Is this an outstanding piece of performance? No, the times haven't come back spectacular. High Royal's an interesting horse, obviously very much improving, and some of these might go underrated. So like High Royal, Galeron, Dubai Mile, who all finished in the first 5. They could go under the radar, so I'd keep an eye on plenty of these. Guineas form's normally strong. The only downside is because it's on such soft ground, most of these horses are going to be running on good or good to firm for the rest. So how much it will translate, I don't know. And also, will some horses will it have took too much out of them? I don't know again. So it'll be interesting to see how Chaldean progresses through the season. My gut says that there'll be other horses over the trip, over the 8 furlongs, that will progress past him. But at the same time, you can't knock him at the moment. You're guessing as to where he's going to go next. Obviously, you could go like Irish 2000 and stuff, but do you need to go there? Some will go straight to Ascot and take in, I think it's the St James's Palace as the 8 furlongs. Yeah, St James's Palace, the one Caribus won last year. And so he could well go and do that, or he could go to Ireland. But for me, I like a little bit of a break, especially as he had a theoretical 2 runs. But yeah, so in summary, Chaldean, good winner. Don't underrate High Royal, Galeron, Dubai Mile, because they could go off big prices wherever they are, but just worry about soft ground. Noble Style looks a Commonwealth horse for me. Sakir, not sure where he'll go yet. August rode in a Little Big Bear, just like many of O'Brien's on the weekend. Just throw it in the bin and then just wait and see what you get next time. Little Big Bear, if he's ended up over 6 furlongs, you want to start thinking about the Commonwealth Cup for him as well. Right then. So let's go on to Sunday. Newmarket. So this was straight up was the Gordon Richards Stakes. So obviously I put a YouTube video up on the Sunday morning. Like I think there's many people like as much as I had one winner from I think it was 4 selections possibly. If you'd put like say a tenner on each of them or whatever, or a pound on each of them, I think you'd have been like say a pound down or £2 down. But it felt like a loss because of what I'd done with the 2000 guineas. Fairly deflating, but at the same time, I was just like, because you put so much into it, you just think you've got to go again because your form hasn't, as in what you're basing all your selections on hasn't changed. So I could stand here and tell you I've picked 10 losers, but I'll tell you why I picked them, and I'd stick with why I picked them. So that's why I did the YouTube video, and obviously the YouTube video the Sunday was absolutely brilliant. I did mention straight away on the Richard Stakes, the Group 3, Adyar. He was 11 to 8 in the morning. And I said I wasn't backing him, but at the same time I wouldn't put anyone off backing him just because I couldn't understand. It was a Group 3. He's a Group 1 winner, running in a Group 3. He didn't have a penalty. His biggest rival was not a Group 1 winner and had to carry a £5 penalty, Amnat. In fact, I think Amnat's not. In fact, no, Amnat probably is a Group 1 winner. Otherwise, why do he carry a penalty? I know, Group 2. Yeah, he is a Group 1 winner. No, that's Group 3. No, he's not a Group 1 winner. I was right. So he had a penalty just due to the conditions of the race. So it favoured him. But I just couldn't get my head around why he was odds against. I thought he should have been odds on. Obviously, I was out for the day. He went off odds on and he absolutely hacked up. They've said that it's likely he's going to go to Royal Ascot rather than. I thought if he goes. They're talking about Hurricane Lane going to the Coronation Cup, I believe, at Epsom, and Adyar going to Royal Ascot. I thought Adyar's the more impressive one, and that he should be going to the Coronation Cup. But obviously I'm not the trainer and I don't know anything like the trainers do. So, and don't take me word for word, but that's just what Charlie Appleby said at the time. Right, onto the handicap. Obviously I put up a very strong case. Well, I thought it was fairly strong for HMS President and last year's winner Semhan. Obviously HMS President got the job done. I said he'd need a career best. I haven't looked at his RPR. His RPR's not there yet. And I'm guessing the numbers aren't out yet, but I think that was a career best. Brilliant ride by Ross O'Ryan, like one of probably 5 or 6 could have won that race, and he just got the best out of him. I think the ground would have suited due to being Alan King being a jumps yard, and he got the job done, so it's brilliant. This is what I go back to again, same with the fillies and the mares. Like this was very impressive from Running Lion, I thought, and I have mentioned it recently. Was the fact that the differences between anti-post on the flat and anti-post in the jumps is the jumps is very restricted to where you can send your horses. So if you back a horse to win the next step along, so say it's Christmas and you back it to win something at the Dublin Race Festival, it's going to go there. Whereas the problem is with the flat is they can go so many different directions. If they have a harder run, if they want to go somewhere else, they can. So it's just always being wary with your stakes. And the prime here was the Pretty Polly Stakes, is the fact that if you'd backed Running Lion for the Oaks before this at 20 to 1, you'd be absolutely laughing, because I thought this was one of the most impressive winners of the weekend. And as I've always said, John Gosden and Aidan O'Brien are the masters with fillies and mares. And to see her win so well, obviously what the form's worth is a guess, because obviously you've only had 1 or 2 runners come out of it so far. Most of the runners had only had 1 or 2, that they've all just got ones next to their name. But John Gosden said, well, it wasn't John Gosden, it was the fact that Oisin Murphy rode him, and he was very keen on the fact that he won. He rode Roaring Lion, and obviously the fact that was in the Derby on him, and he said he was travelling the best when he hit the 10 furlongs market, and then he just couldn't stay the trip the last 2 furlongs. So he's implanted a very strong, maybe you should go elsewhere and go to the French Oaks instead, which is over the extended 10 furlongs, same race they won with Nashua last year. So if you're on at the Oaks prices, I mean, me personally, I think it's still going to be very hard for them to turn down. I think, put it this way, if Frankie Dettori had rode Running Lion there, he would have got off and said, yep, she's an Oaks filly. But obviously, at the end of the day, it's their choice. So it's just one of those that if you're thinking about steaming in, because I know Price-Wise has put her up for the Oaks, and I think she is a massive player. She's still 9-1 now, and she is a massive player. But connections have strongly said that they're considering the French Oaks. So until you know. But like I said, you're going to have so many Oaks horses coming out in the next few days that the 9-1 is probably going to be 9-8-1 anyway. You'll get a lot of, they look wide open Oaks and wide open Derby this year currently. So, but as I said, it's just worth bearing in mind, just going a bit more speculatively. Onto the Dahlia, and that's where we have Via Sestina. So Via Sestina was brilliant. As soon as the rain came, so the rain came heavy on the Friday night, I put this selection in our Discord at 8-1. Because Connections had said they wanted the soft ground, and she just stood out like a sore thumb from before. I already had her on my radar ready to go, and I was going to back her regardless of as long as she was running, but I just didn't know. And then when the heavier ground came, and then the money came, and then it stopped, and then in the morning she was around the 9-2, 5-1 when I was doing my YouTube. And then by the time I got out in the afternoon, I checked the price, and she was like 3-1. So the money really did come, and she looks an absolute Group 1 horse in the making. I'd be shocked if she's not a Group 1 winner on soft ground before the end of the year. The only issue you're going to have is if you back her anti-post anywhere, is it sounds like she's going to be ground dependent. She seems like she's got a little bit of an issue with maybe her forelegs. When I say forelegs, I mean her back legs. I'm not a horse person, so I don't know how to say it. And so she likes to get her toe in. Like, I think perfect races are going to be things like on Arc weekend. I could easily see her down there in like similar sort of races that one of my favourites, Tanawa, raced in. So the problem is that she's going to be is where's she going to go, obviously between then and there, because obviously it's going to be quite fast ground. Like things like Ascot are likely going to be fast ground. But we'll see. At the moment, obviously it's bottomless still everywhere. So maybe they'll bring her out in the next few weeks. But if not, I'd imagine she might end up in France. Some of this soft ground at the moment still. But yeah, very, very impressive. On to the 1,000 Guineas. Right, so before I start this, certain people like to give out. So obviously I put up on Twitter, I said, I had 3 out of the 4 selections. 3 out of the 4 races I covered on the day, I had 3 out of the 4 winners, which I did. But people were saying, Morge, that doesn't count. You put it as a cover bet, blah, blah, blah. You can't back 3 horses in a race. Someone said, you put up 7 horses, that was correct. I put up 2 horses in a 20-runner handicap. I put up 3 horses in a 20-runner Guineas, and I put 2 1 horses up. One came first at 8-1, or if you got it in the morning, 9-2. And the other one came second at 9-2, which again, you would have got each way. And like people giving out, like I understand, like even if I'd gone each way on all 3 of these in the Guineas, it still would have generated profit. And if you'd watched the video and if you'd read any of the analysis, I said straight up that this is a race where you're either with the favourite, Tahira, who's looks a superstar, but is very short in the betting at 6-4, or you can afford to take her on with a couple against her. And my option was, I even explained it in simple terms, was if you put a tenner on Tahira in the morning, you'd have got, say, 15 quid profit, so 25 quid. So I thought, if you did the same, say you put 4 quid on the 2, Meditate, that was 8-1, and Dream of Love, that was 8-1, my 2 main selections, and say you put 2 quid on Morge. So Morge, you won, I don't know, £24 or 12, 24, £26. So you're making £16 profit, and then the other 2, if you'd won, you'd have won a lot more. So you're making £16 profit. You still made £1 more than you had back in Tahira, and that was my point. It was the fact that people get so hung up. Like if you back Morge at 12-1 and you're playing win only, I could technically back 10 other horses, and I'm still going to make profit. I'm not here to tell you I'm the top tipster, I'm this, I'm that. I'm telling you this is how I do it. If you want to follow, follow. If you don't, don't. But the people that just gave out to me, like I don't argue anymore. I just take a picture of their thing, look at it later on, and then I just go and I block them. And it's not I block them because I'm being petty in any sort of way. It's because a lot of this, like doing this sort of previews, like the Man City match is on right now, and I'd much rather be sat down there watching the Man City game, having a few beers. But I do this because I do enjoy it, and a lot of people do appreciate it. But I don't. The reason I block people is because I don't want to be giving out free content that I take a lot of time over to people who are just going to give out like this every time that something doesn't go right. And it wasn't even like it was a loser. It was the fact that it didn't suit because you backed three horses and they were 8-1, 8-1, and 12-1. And even if it was a cover bet, you still got your money back and you still backed the winner at the end of the day. So anyway, rant over. Let's actually talk about the Guineas. So again, from the bottom. Power Dress is 66-1. She went off. I think she's one to keep on side still. Fairy Cross, I don't think enjoyed the ground whatsoever. Dream of Love was actually very, very, very poor. She was beaten 16 lengths. She just didn't really go on at all in the slightest. I mean, even if you look at the Morge form where she stayed on like a train, like she was just nothing like that. And you put the collateral form of Morge, maybe it was Dream of Love that was actually flattered rather than Morge. So I'm not going to write Dream of Love off. I think if you're hopefully next time out, you'll get a much bigger price after this poor run. You have to remember also a lot of these horses were having their first runs. So like things like Mama's Girl, you couldn't make such an excuse for because she'd already had a run. But a horse like Dream of Love, this was her first run. So whether she didn't handle the ground or she needed it and stuff, I know she ran in at Maiden, but that was like 3-4 months ago. So I think she's easily forgotten, easily just put a line through. Lazoo, I didn't think was ever going to stay the trip. Meditate was very interesting. She went from about 7-2 out to 8-1 or 9-1 in the morning, then backed all the way back into 5-1. I didn't think she was going to really handle the soft ground, and just like Aidan O'Brien's big horses, none of them really fired. And I think this with Aidan O'Brien, a bit like Willie Munn's, is sometimes they're not using a classic as a prep, but if things aren't going spectacular, like as in if you're not like there or thereabouts, like Ryan Moore will not give these a hard ride. He'll just say, yep, no worries, we'll just save it for the next day. And she'll go to like the Irish 1,000 Guineas, or she'll come to a Group 1 and suddenly bang, she just wins it. And that's what they do. They're in a fortunate position where they've not got owners. Like when you're riding for Coolmore, you've not got an owner that literally is on your case, like, why was that horse not ready to peak? Why did it not? That was the one chance we'll ever have to win a Guinea sort of thing. You've got okay, you might not have got this one, but you've kept the horse sound, safe, and it could win 3 or 4 Group 1s further down the line. Meditate hasn't become a bad horse overnight. She obviously won the Breeders' Cup, won at the Breeders' Cup. And obviously her only, I think her only defeat last year was to Tahira. In fact, I think she was beaten at Ascot as well. I'll check that. I think it was Statuette who won at Royal Ascot. She got beaten her. No, I take it back. She beat Morge at Royal Ascot. So there's some form lines for you. And then she was beaten by Lazoo and she beat Tahira. But just like most of Aidan O'Brien, she was well raced. But you're looking at her numbers, she was well underperform here. But the market told you that anyway. And then obviously Caernarfon, who had the form in with Dream of Love. So in reality, Dream of Love didn't finish far behind Morge or behind Caernarfon in the race before at Newmarket. So putting those 2 and 2 together, Dream of Love should have been right up in the pack here and should have been finishing a lot closer. But the stars of the show by Country Mile were Morge and Tahira. Like that is a proper pull away. Like they were. It says 8 lengths here, but like they were so dominant. And the irony is, if you took Morge out of it, everyone would say Tahira is literally going to win everything this year. They'd be talking about her for the Arc, the Oaks. She literally would be untouchable, and that's the strange thing about it, because just because you're beaten, I know obviously if you back Tahira, you're not going to be impressed because of the fact that she's lost, but she hasn't suddenly turned into a bad horse. And I think the difference is as well is Morge had 2 runs in Dubai. And had already had a run at the mile and at mile on soft ground, had some sun on his back, come here, not fresh, and Saeed bin Saror gets his horses hard fit. So this horse would have been ready to go. So it would have been like say 100, probably 99.9%. Whereas Tahira, I get it, she's going to be ready because it's a classic, but I'd be shocked if World hadn't left a little bit, as in he's not going to put all his eggs on the table. Does that mean that then Tahira reverses form with Morge going forwards? No, not necessarily. But I'd just be sure that by the end of the season that Tahira will be going in this sort of direction. I think Morge will probably just be going like that. Morge could still easily pick up some more Group 1s and is clearly an absolutely outstanding horse. And at the mile, improved leaps and bounds. They had massive, like I remember backing this at Ascot last year, and it was the talk of the town. And they had massive thought for it, and Oisin Murphy gave it an absolute beautiful ride. But the Tahira fans, I would not underrate the performance against Morge, as in I wouldn't say that Tahira is suddenly going to beat Morge if they meet again. But at the same time, I do think throughout the season, I think Tahira will continue to go upwards like this. Where she goes trip wise, I'm not sure. I backed her for the Arc at like 25-1 beforehand, before the season even started, and then I read Dermot Well's comments, and it sounds she's more like a Tanawa sort of mould in the early years, where you're looking at 8 to 10 furlongs. I can imagine her pitching up on Arc weekend in the like a 10 furlong race. I think it's maybe the Diane or something like that. But prior to that, she's got plenty of good races to come, and I'd expect more to come from her. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if they ended up splitting up, and Tahira went to the 1,000 Guineas over in Ireland, and Morge went for the Coronation Cup at Ascot. Obviously, they could both do both. So, I mean, Morge is priced 5-2 for the Coronation. I think that's quite insulting. But again, this is the problem with the flat, is you are guessing a lot. It's not, you don't have that jumps compact, definitely going here if you're not injured sort of thing. So you're always taking that risk. Right then. So what else have we got? Oh, so this was an interesting race. The Maiden Stakes, On Point and Mashadi. These two just look like very good 2-year-olds. I wouldn't write off White Christmas either, because the interesting thing with White Christmas was, one, obviously a big outsider at 8-1, and doesn't sound like a big outsider, but obviously it's a 3-horse race. But Michael Bell's horses always come on for a run, so I'd put all 3 of these in your tracker: On Point, Mashadi, and White Christmas, because White Christmas, it wouldn't surprise me if it goes to somewhere else and comes on massively for a second time out. Is there anything else I want to flag up? And then obviously my second with Rathgar, Royal Rhyme was very impressive for Burke. So let's just flick across to Ascot and see what we've got just going forwards, because obviously that's what a lot of people are here for. And we'll have a little quick look through. So Coventry is too early, Queen Anne too early, King's Stand too early, St James's Palace, Chaldean's 7-4 favourite. I mean, is he really going to go off that much shorter? Well, I guess it depends what happens in the 2,000, the Irish 2,000 Guineas, and if he goes there. But I wouldn't be in a rush to back that myself. They're all 2-year-old races. Prince of Wales I find very interesting, that Bay Bridge is the 4-1 favourite, when obviously beaten in the race last year. Doesn't like fast ground, just like Truishan. Everyone associates Truishan with Royal Ascot. It's never ever ran there. Been entered there plenty of times, but because of the ground, never ran there. Obviously we do get soft and heavy grounds, but it just hasn't fallen for him. So like Prince of Wales Stakes, like there's plenty more horses in there than you wouldn't want me taking the 4-1 favourite unless you knew it was going to be softish ground. Albany Stakes 4-1 favourite Soprano is, but there's only one bookmaker pricing it up. So I think once you get going, there'll be plenty more. This is what I'm saying. You just don't rush. Commonwealth Cup, Sakir is currently the favourite. Like, for me, I thought Noble Star ran a much better race than Sakir, and they've got the market right at the moment. Noble Star beat Marshman, who's 12-1. Lazoo finished in and around these sort of horses, 16-1. Cold Case was impressive the other day, but I do think the market's right. Sakir, Noble Star, and Little Big Bear. But of the 3 at the front, I'd prefer Noble Star and Little Big Bear personally. But we'll see. Coronation Stakes, if I knew Morge was definitely going, I'd be happy to take a chance. But it's another we just wait for. Ascot Gold Cup, my shortlist is Eldarov. I put that up in the Discord at 8-1, and Coltrane, I backed that a smaller bet at 6-1 as well. There could be others that come out. Emily Dickinson, obviously a worthy favourite probably, but short enough price based on what she's achieved so far. I know she gets the weight allowance, but she's not exactly blowing the eyeballs out, and she's already 4-1 favourite. So I'd prefer Eldarov and Coltrane at the prices. So yeah. And then obviously we roll on to the weekend. So weekend, I haven't looked at most of the races. People will be asking Chester. I've been asked if I'm putting a Chester. I don't bet at Chester anymore. I've had bad experiences. I just don't enjoy it. Like, as in, I enjoy watching it. I don't enjoy punting there. You just see so many hard luck stories. Like I've already seen today on Twitter. Like, it's very difficult to see horse A and horse B, like say Arrest and whatever the Oaks filly's called, beaten tomorrow. It's very difficult to see this, and it will be very difficult. Some of these will be set off like 4-7, and some of them will absolutely bolt up, and others of them they'll find a way to get beat. It's just not a track that I enjoy, and it's like watching the F1. It's brilliant to watch, like as in the 5 furlong horses. If you're drawn any higher than probably 3, like your chance out the window, they get to that corner, and even if you're in 1 or 2. If you miss the kick, it's like being in America. You miss the kick, your chance is gone. Suddenly you go from a 4-6 shot to like an 8-1 shot before you hit the first turn. So it's a watching brief for me. Potentially may have some horses for the weekend on Saturday. I've backed a few for the over in France. In the 2000 Guineas, I did read last night in the Racing Post that Aidan O'Brien's horse is out of the race, so I backed American Flag, and I've also backed Isaac Shelby. So Isaac Shelby obviously won the Greenham recently, um, in effect beating Chaldine, but Chaldine didn't actually run. But at the same time, the sectionals came back good. The Greenham was run obviously on softish ground, and it came back as one of the better run-ins in the last 10 years on times of sectionals. So everything about the form was good, and everyone was concentrating on was Chaldine because of the fact that he didn't turn up. It would have been interesting to see if he had ran, see how close they would have got to each other, whether obviously Isaac Shelby had given him a race based on the fact that obviously he's won the Guineas since. But all the same, Isaac Shelby looked like a good horse and bounced back to some of his better 2-year-old form. If he can repeat that going over to France, it sounds like they had soft/heavy ground on Sunday, so if it sounds like it's going to be wet again there, and it's still anti-post at the moment. So you currently the there's plenty that might still not run. And I say won't still run. Like I look through the field and you've got Slip of the Pen, who could run but is very inexperienced, only had one run. Little Big Bear, very unlikely to run after the weekend. Silver not ran at the weekend. Victoria Road is Aidan O'Brien's already ruled him out. Al Reefer is going to the 2000 Guineas. So you look through and they're just going to fall by the wayside, hopefully. So yeah, I've got American Flag at I think 5-1 and Isaac Shelby at 6-1. But they're still backable prices now to Dutch the pair, and obviously you get paid at over even money if either was to win. And then looking at the 1,000 Guineas, the French 1,000 Guineas, I've just gone with Blue Rose Sen again. I backed her at 2-1. She was the same horse that I backed last year when she won on Art Weekend, very impressively. I didn't get the fancy prices. Like I know people got a lot bigger prices for the French 1,000 Guineas, but I was too caught up in the jumps. So yeah, that's it really. So yeah, those are my early ones for the weekend. The prices are going because I put them out to the Discord group yesterday, and then I was going to just put them on Twitter tonight so that everyone can have them. But obviously, it's not fair to put them out until everyone in the Discord's got to see them first. Otherwise, there's no point having it really. So that's the lot really. There's plenty of the season to go. I just wouldn't be writing off. There's not too many horses I'd look at this weekend, and just be like, oh no, you can't. And just always take it with a pinch of salt. Remember, one, it's first time out, and two, it was soft or heavy ground for a few of them. Like for starters, the horses on Friday rode on good to firm. The horse on Saturday rode on soft to heavy. So like you get complete chalk and cheese. So when they come to run next time, if they're on a good to firm surface and they were poor on soft to heavy, then they can go again much better. So anyway, I'll be back. I would have thought probably after the weekend. I'm not even sure what the races are. I know it's the York Dante meeting because we're obviously gearing up ready for the Derby. I have still obviously August Rodin. I've got a 16-1. Whether that's going to come to anything anymore, it looked a lot better going into the race. But we'll see. Wide open Derby, wide open Oaks. So if you see something you like, it's going to be fastest finger first. So if you see it, whether it's Chester, Lingfield, got Chester the next 3 days, Lingfield on the weekend, you're going to have to be quick to get them. So good luck. I'm Risk for Wards, and thank you very much.